The Curse of the Gloomy Sorcerer. In a small village on the outskirts of a dark forest, an old legend was passed down from generation to generation. It told of the Gloomy Sorcerer, a mysterious being who dwelled in an abandoned mansion on an isolated hill. The mansion was ancient, surrounded by dead trees, their twisted branches casting an air of dread. No one from the village dared to approach it, even in broad daylight. No one knew when the mansion was built or who its original owner was, but the legend said that the sorcerer arrived centuries ago, taking over the place after being exiled from his realm for unforgivable crimes. It was said that the sorcerer was once an ambitious young man, eager to master the arcane arts, but he became consumed by his desire for immortality and absolute power. He delved into black magic, summoning dark spirits and monstrous creatures. His ultimate goal was to stop time itself, to live forever. One day, he found an ancient spell in forbidden books, a spell that could grant him immortality, but it carried a deadly curse. In exchange for eternal life, he would lose all his humanity, transforming into a terrifying creature that could only exist in darkness, feeling nothing but cold and loneliness. After performing the spell, the sorcerer's skin turned ashen grey, and his thick black hair became tangled and unkempt. His glowing yellow eyes flickered in the dark, like those of a beast, and his twisted smile was a sign that he no longer knew happiness or mercy. His life became a series of endless dark nights in the damp basement of his abandoned mansion. He lived among shadows, reveling in the fear he instilled in those who dared approach his lair. Every night he summoned the spirits of the dead to converse with them and relive their horrifying tales, telling the stories to himself as if savoring the torment of others. But despite his terrifying power, the sorcerer lived in constant torment. Each night he gazed into a broken mirror in the corner of his cellar, seeing reflections of his past life, faces of those he betrayed and crushed to achieve his immortality. The mirror didn't show reality, but reflected his shattered soul and the irreversible mistakes of his life. Part 1. The Beginning of Terror. One day, a group of young adventurers arrived in the village. They were thrill-seekers looking for excitement and hidden mysteries. They heard of the mansion and the legend, but didn't take it seriously. Deciding to explore the mansion, they ventured to the hill on a stormy night, the wind howling through the dead trees. As they entered the mansion, they felt as if they had stepped into another world, a world full of evil and mystery. The walls were coated with mold, the air thick with a putrid smell, and the silence was broken only by the occasional creak of the decaying wooden floor. Everything in the mansion breathed fear. They continued until they found themselves before a mysterious basement door. Curiosity drove them to open it and descend into its depths. There, in the shadows, they saw only the faint light of scattered candles and shadows moving as if they were alive. In the center of this horrific scene sat the Gloomy Sorcerer, with his pale face and cold, twisted smile. In a deep, raspy voice, the sorcerer began to speak, telling them the tales of the mansion and its curse. Each story was more terrifying than the last. He took a perverse pleasure in watching the fear rise in their eyes. But they didn't realize that every word he spoke wasn't just a tale, but a curse being cast upon them. The impossible escape. After hours of horror, the adventurers realized they were trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. They tried to flee, but every door was locked, and every window showed terrifying visions that didn't belong to the real world. They realized that the sorcerer had no intention of letting them go. Instead, he wanted to add them to his collection of cursed souls that he summoned every night. As time passed, they began to lose their grip on reality. They heard whispers in strange tongues and saw phantoms moving in the dark corners. They tried to rely on each other, but the fear consumed them. They even started to doubt one another. Was there a traitor among them who had made a secret deal with the sorcerer? Part 3. The Final Confrontation. In the end, only one of them remained, a young man named Samer. He was the bravest and smartest of the group, but now he stood alone against the sorcerer. He knew that running was no longer an option. The only way to end this nightmare was to confront the sorcerer and break the curse of immortality. Thanks to the books of magic he found in the cellar, Samer discovered that the sorcerer could only be defeated if he looked into the reflection of his true soul in the cracked mirror. That mirror, the one the sorcerer feared, was the key to his downfall. Slowly, Sama approached the mirror, and the moment the sorcerer's yellow eyes met its reflection, he saw himself as he once was. A young, ambitious man who had become a monster. The sorcerer let out a blood-curdling scream, and with every scream, the walls of the mansion cracked, the candles melted, and the shadows vanished. In an instant, the mansion crumbled into ruins, and the sorcerer turned into dust, blown away by the wind. Epilogue. Sama returned to the village alone, but something seemed different about him. There was a strange glow in his eyes, like the same yellow gleam he had seen in the sorcerer's eyes. He had survived, but the curse was far from over.